Welcome to Sisterhood Sessions.
Join us on the couch every Thursday to talk about love, dating, happiness, and everything in between
From a Gen Z
and a millennial perspective.
We are your intimate sisters, and we're all about entertaining, motivating, and inspiring you.
Now let's get into it.
Welcome back, everybody.
Hi, nice to see you again.
Today, we want to touch on boundaries.
Yeah, I think it's a really important subject to talk about.
I think right now it's also really fitting because as we are recording this, the Jonah Hill situation is going on. And if you aren't up to date with that, get up to date because, wow.
That's a perfect example of why boundary setting is so important in your everyday life.
Mm-hmm. And having a clear understanding of what boundaries actually are is also super important.
Yeah. So what are boundaries? Boundaries are the limits and rules we set for ourselves in our everyday lives.
And how we let other people engage with us.
Mm-hmm. Basically what you allow
in your bubble.
In your bubble. There you go. Well, it depends, but what we're touching on today, essentially, we're going to be limiting our scope to the boundaries that you set with your friends, with your family, and in your romantic partnerships.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So why do we need boundaries?
There's so many reasons. It's so you have like an expectation of what to expect in any one of these relationships that you're in, whether platonic or romantic. Like it sets you up to know what to expect, what you are and are not going to be tolerating.
Mm-hmm. That's huge. For me, it's really about protecting your mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also about sometimes protecting your physical well-being.
Mm-hmm. That one's huge.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also a form of self-care.
Totally. If you haven't seen our self-care episode, make sure you go and check that one out. But we didn't touch on this in that episode, but boundaries are a huge part of self-care.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
100%. Also, like, just kind of self-preservation, almost. Just,
yeah.
like, making sure you're good.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So let's dive into it. Let's dive into ways in which our boundaries have been tested in friendships.
One that's been really huge for me that I've been learning over the last couple of years is proper communication and respect for like one another's time and energy.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I don't really settle for in friendships anymore is, or like any relationship, but are things being one-sided. It's okay if you can't give me the time of day all the time, and if our relationship or friendship might have to be more like surface level than anything intimate. But if we are calling one another a best friend, like I'm expecting you to put in the same amount of time and energy that I'm giving you, mm-hmm. and that it's equal. And if it's not, that's fine, but we need to properly communicate it and take a step back in that case. Otherwise, it's unfair if one person is putting in more than the other. And I've had this happen a few times where I've had to take steps back from friendships where I've still totally loved the people. They just couldn't give me what I needed in a friendship, and that wasn't fair to me. So it was my boundary to be like, I need to take a step back from this. We can always, pick it back up when our times and schedules or whatever allows. But like I need people that give me the same energy I give them. And that's become like a huge one for me.
Yeah, that's massive. We all lead really busy lives, mm-hmm. And respecting somebody's time is massive. One of the biggest issues I ran into when I first moved here, when I was trying to make new friendships, was that I'm the sort of person where like if I make a plan, I stick to it, mm-hmm. unless there's some massive unforeseen circumstance. But if I have set a day aside and I have made a plan and let somebody know this is the day that we're meeting, this is the time that we're meeting, and you cancel on me like that very same day or a couple of hours before, that's a boundary that I've set where I'm like, you can get away with it once, but more than that, it's a waste of my time.
Like, it's circumstantial. If something comes up and you're sick, whatever. But if it's a continuous thing to happen, that's just unfair and unfortunate. Then you're being a flaky person, and that's not fair to either one of us. I'm setting aside time for you. Like, honor that and respect it. Obviously, there'll be things that come up where you can't always live up to that, and that's fine. But just proper communication around that is, I think, like, the most important thing. And just not have it be a super common occurrence, or you're not the greatest friend.
Yeah, I love that about you, actually, because you're a person who, like, you stick to your word. You say you will do something, you're actually going to do it.
Like, I rarely ever cancel on people.
I think that's the Capricorn in you. You are such a Capricorn.
I love planning, and, like, I love sticking to plans. And, yeah, like, I will rarely ever, like, let them go. Like, if I make a plan with someone, I will show up in one form or another. If I get sick or something comes up, like, obviously, you know.
Yeah, extenuating circumstances. That's normal, that's fine. But
I'm a planner, and if I make a plan with someone, I will show up. Once again, I've said this before, I might be a little bit late. My ADHD makes me horrible with time management, but I'll be there.
You will be there.
Like 95% of the time.
Yeah. Being late is a tough one. I actually struggled with being on time a lot when I was younger. And, like, when I say struggled, I mean, like, not 10 minutes late. I would be, like, an hour or 2 hours late. And then I realized that I hated that so much when other people did that to me. And it's important to place yourself in other people's shoes and realize, wow, if that's making me upset, I'm sure that's making other people upset, and it's a lack of respect. So I really worked hard on getting better at that, and I'm not perfect by any means, but, you know, I try really, really hard to be on time now and respect other people's time.
But one thing I think that we've established with our friends and with each other is, like, if we set a time, give me, like, 10 to 15 minutes leeway.
Honey, I tell you to be somewhere an hour before you're supposed to, just in case.
Whoa, I'm like 15 minutes late on, like, average.
All I'm saying is I've learned that that's a personality trait that you have, so I tell you to be somewhere well before you actually need to be there. And it works.
I think it's not even like a personality. I'm going to blame my ADHD. It makes me horrible at time management. I used to be so good with it, but now it's just, yeah. I think I have more time than I do, and then I look at the clock, I'm like, oh. Like, why am I taking so long? And then just, yeah.
To circumvent that issue, actually, like, also, we share each other's locations on our phones. So, like, I will check where you are and see that you're at home, and I'm like, okay. And, like, just take my time then. So funny.
But see, at least I show up. I'm
That's
here.
true. At least she shows up. I'll give her that.
There's something.
Yeah. But something that can happen if there is lack of communication when, you know, your boundaries are being pushed, like, you know, you being upset that you're not getting the energy you deserve in your friendships, you're not getting that back as much as you're putting in, and myself, people who, like, cancel on me last minute continuously, is it starts to build resentment. And that's a really uncomfortable feeling, and nobody likes to feel that way. So that's something that, you know, if you set boundaries and you discuss it, you can avoid that feeling coming up.
Well, communication's huge because we almost just went through a little bit of that ourselves. There's been some audio and technical issues with doing this. And because I do the editing portion, Sophie runs the Instagram and does, like, the messaging back to all you guys. The tasks are even if things are working the way they're supposed to. But audio issues just kept building up, and things kept happening where my workload with editing was just way more than it should be. It was becoming a part-time job while working a full-time job, and I was becoming so exhausted. It was just, like, so tiring. It was so much. And then I reached out to Sophie. I was like, hey, by the way, like, we need to, like, fix these issues because, like, we need to get new audio equipment, upgrade, like, do something because I'm doing a lot and I'm starting to become like resentful because I know you don't have the exact same workload as me when it's a 50-50 project, and like it's making like it feel really unfair. And there's also physically nothing Sophie can do to take over like any of the editing or like my responsibilities. Like I'm becoming like resentful and I don't want to be, so I need to let you know where I'm at so we can like fix this issue. And the communication became really good. I just kind of started like spamming Sophie with text messages, like listing everything, and then she said like in a concise thing, be like, hey, so this and this are leading to how you're feeling. And I was like, yes, like you worded it perfectly. And she's like, okay, then we'll take these steps to improve it and fix this issue so we both stay like enjoying doing this project and there isn't any resentment towards each other. And like that, it's pretty well fixed. Like now that emotion isn't there anymore. It's just now we're looking at upgrades for audio equipment to like make this even better. So now we're like on a better trajectory. Mm-hmm. And it was like communication that fixed that issue. Like as soon as I started to feel that way, I voiced it to like prevent there being any resentment.
And I didn't respond to it with anger or like personal hurt. Oh, she's upset at me because she's doing more work than I am. I could have, reacted out of hurt. But I really sat with it and I thought, okay, her feelings are valid. I respect her and I respect that she actually voiced her concerns to me. Now let's come up with a solution so that the problem is solved. And so we outlined different ways that we could come up with a solution. We found it, and now we've moved past the issue. Mm-hmm. So that was really good boundary setting for you, good communication on both our parts, and then we solved the problem.
Yeah, we did. Actually, it's still in the works. The audio situation's not the greatest today, but it's going to get better.
It's going to get better.
We're working on it currently.
Yeah. This problem solving is on the horizon, mm-hmm. but we're taking the steps, which is enough for now to like settle.
There's no bad blood. It's I love over here.
I don't know how to do this Gen Z heart. Did I do it?
Almost. Not really. It's kind of a circle. Short.
Let's do a millennial heart.
Ew. Anyway. Speaking of love. Boundaries and relationships.
Yeah. Oof. Those get heated, hey?
It becomes... Yeah. Because people can have different boundaries in relationships, and essentially if your boundaries don't align with your partner's, that's a sign it's not going to work. Like right off the bat. And so you need to be having those conversations early on about what your boundaries are. Mm-hmm. If we want to take a little quick look into the Jonah Hill situation, so in case you're unaware, he was dating this surf instructor, and so with her job...
She's a pro surfer, isn't she?
I think so, a pro surfer, and then would teach it as well. Mm-hmm. So she would be working with males as, she'd be their coach, teaching them how to surf, and then because it was part of her job, she would be posting surfing photos on Instagram, which would mean she's posting photos in a bikini. Jonah Hill was using therapy lingo and using his therapy experience to say that his boundaries were he was uncomfortable with her posting bikini photos, working with males, so on. A lot of people are divided on like social media about whether that's right or wrong. People are saying, respect his boundaries. Like, you need to get a clear idea of what boundaries are, because those are that's not boundary setting. That is a form of controlling. If you're not okay with your woman posting bikini photos on Instagram, maybe you're wanting someone like to be modest, quote unquote. Sure, that's fine. You can want that in a partner, but then don't date a pro surfer. Like, that's just that at that point, it's on you, and that's not a boundary. And if you're insecure with it, because that's what it is, Jonah Hill is coming from a place of insecurity, that's fine, but then you have two routes to to navigate that situation. Either A, you dig down into the roots of your insecurity and you communicate that with your partner, be like, hey, I'm feeling this way about this, about I'm feeling insecure about you posting bikini photos. I'm gonna do the work to see where it derives from. I'd like to work through it. He could do that, or he can end it. Because trying to tell her what to do, what to post on her social media, what to do for her job that she's already, like, settled in, that she was doing before you were with her, like, that's not okay.
Preach!
I want to, like...
I love that rant. That was excellent. Very well put. So when you said that people are divided on this, can we have a guess who's on Jonah Hill's side? Maybe 50% of
Insecure
the
men.
population. Yeah.
Insecure men.
Yeah. So
Anyways,
no surprise there.
If you're one of them, sorry, but also dive deep into yourself.
Your preferences are not boundaries.
You heard it here first. No, you've heard it like everywhere first, but you've heard it here now too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so to kind of keep with the relationship boundary realm. I'm still so heated.
Yeah. It's super angering because it's happened to all of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've had partners who tried to police the way that I looked as well and the way that I portrayed myself on social media. I had one partner specifically who tried to control my weight. I'm a little person, okay? I'm naturally petite, and I was still, according to him, too heavy. And he would suggest that I go to the gym and maybe I shouldn't eat as many carbs and... Yeah, look, I was
like someone needs to buy a baseball bat.
Right?
I'm not promoting violence. We do not do that over here.
We do not.
But the man did need to be put in his place. By some professional help. A therapist would benefit him.
Very much so. But I was about your age when this was happening. And
people in their early 20s or, like, you know, young are so, like, I fully don't even know my boundaries. It's something I'm still very much learning. But to even understand what they are, like, that's so hard for someone, like, young to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, being a teenager, being in your early 20s, it's so hard to set clear boundaries because you don't have a full grasp of what everything means.
Well, not only that, but you discover what your boundaries are
As you grow up.
As you grow up and you have these life experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Because the way in which you identify your boundaries is by recognizing what gets an emotional reaction out of you. If you can think back on experiences that you've had recently that gave a rise out of you, right? Sarah got really upset when she heard about the Jonah Hill situation because it was a form of a man trying to control a woman. That's something that for you is now a clear boundary. Mm-hmm. You're not okay with anybody doing that to you. I think back now to a man trying to control my weight and my physical appearance. That gets a rise out of me. That's now a boundary that I have. I'm absolutely not okay with anybody policing my appearance, mm-hmm. right? Or anybody else's for that matter. But that's how you figure out what your boundaries are, by going through life and recognizing what gets an emotional rise out of you.
And taking that, you can view what gets an emotion out of you. There's kind of two avenues to go down. Either you discover what your boundaries are, or you discover personal insecurities and issues that you need to fix. So you need to sit with it. Maybe even get some, like, outside opinions, whether it be from, like, friends or family. Realize, is this something stemming from insecurity, maybe a place of trauma, you know, whatever it may be? Is it coming from a place of you, or is it coming from a place of you being disrespected, you realizing that, and that's now a boundary you need to put up?
Mm-hmm. Totally agree with that. Another boundary that I've realized I'm not okay with, and I'll share this because an important thing about boundary setting is learning how to communicate your boundaries. Mm-hmm. And I did not have a good understanding or grasp of this. And I was dealing at the time with a partner who loved to go out and drink a lot. This person drank on a daily basis, and when this person would go out with their friends, they would let me know, hey, I'm going out with so-and-so, I'm going to be home at this time. And inevitably, every single time, that would turn out to be a lie. And there would be no communication, there would be no checking in,
no follow-up.
Nothing, and eventually they would stumble through the door at 4 or 5 a.m. and just be a mess. And so that got a huge, like, rise out of me because I didn't know whether I could trust this person. I didn't know what they were doing when they were out and about because there was no communication. I realized that I really disliked excessive drinking. And all of these things, the way I responded to them was out of emotion, and I would get very, very angry. I would, I would have fights with this person about it. I would ask this person not to go out anymore. I would, say like, oh, you have to like text me and let me know what's going on, way more often than should be necessary. And I'm not proud of the way I reacted in that situation.
But it was a result of boundaries not being known.
Yes. So, yeah, that's exactly right. So I didn't know that that was a boundary that I had that had been crossed. What I was being told was that I was a controlling person. And I will say that I kind of did a Jonah Hill a little bit. I'm ashamed to admit. And I'm trying to control another person to be more like what I wanted them to be, rather than accept them for who they are. When what I should have done was set a clear boundary and said, I'm not comfortable with excessive drinking. I'm not comfortable with you going out until 4 or 5 in the morning.
And with the lack of communication that was coming with that.
Yes, exactly. That's what I should have done. And I know that now. And then when those boundaries were being continuously disrespected, that's when I should have said, I'm not comfortable with this. I'm going to leave. That's what I should have done, right? And I know that now. And I know that if and when I enter into another relationship, that's going to be a very clear boundary that's going to be there from the beginning. Mm-hmm. Right? So.
But that's the thing. You learned it, and now you know for whatever comes next.
Exactly right.
And that's the thing. We're continuously learning and like resetting our boundaries, and that's totally fine.
Life is all about learning and bettering yourself.
And we're also becoming way more aware of all these things with social media, as we've said before. Mm-hmm. We weren't as aware that the like red flags were red flags until the dawn of like social media and wellness and mental health started becoming like a major topic of conversation.
Not only are we becoming more aware of these things, we finally have the language to describe it. Mm-hmm. I didn't know these words back then. I didn't know how to express what I was feeling, and just knowing the terms has helped me understand myself and
the people around you.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Kind of piggybacking off of that is I also realized one of my boundaries is like I will not tolerate unkind conversations if it comes to anything of problems. In like my last relationships, if like we didn't agree on something, because dating a man before there's a bit of an age gap, I would be called a child if I didn't like something that was going on, I didn't agree with it, I would be told to grow up and stop acting like a child. I knew that wasn't okay, but now after being out of that relationship and having time to reflect, that's not behavior I will tolerate or a form of communication I will tolerate. My boundary is if there is an issue, we need to sit down and have a respectful, calm manner when going about communicating our feelings, and I will not tolerate any gaslighting or belittling or like name calling. Mm-hmm.
Good for you. Good for you. I know you're punching the air, but you just left me hanging.
Whatever reason.
Thanks. That was very considerate.
Yeah. someone with rings fist bumped me the other day and it hurt. I was like, anyway, but yeah, you learn a lot from all your past relationships. You know what to incorporate and what to leave behind in your next relationship. You're constantly narrowing down your search terms.
There you go.
And this kind of ties into one of our previous episodes.
Relationship SEOs.
But it's so important. It's something we're all continuously learning.
Yeah, absolutely. Another topic we can dive into down here is family, like boundaries with family, and they're so hard.
It's a hard one to navigate.
These are the people you're closest to,
or the people who have raised you and been with you since forever, most of the time.
They're the people you love the most, but they're also the people who can bring out some of the strongest emotions in you, right?
Also some of the people that can hurt you the most.
Absolutely true. So I've touched on this in previous episodes as well, but I really struggled after high school to find my journey and to find my purpose. And, you know, my parents are very educated people, and they gave me all the tools in life that anyone could need in order to like follow a higher education and go into like a really successful career. And those are the dreams and aspirations that they had for me. And, you know, as I was trying to figure out what my next steps were going to be in my early 20s, was I going to go to university? What was I going to study? You know, I dropped out a number of times, and every time, you know, my parents were super, super disappointed. You know, sometimes, like, it was a really emotional time for them. You know, they even cried at some point, you know, because it felt so disappointing to them that I wasn't living up to the potential that they felt that I had. And these conversations were so distressing to me because A, I felt like I was a massive disappointment, and B, because I felt as though, you know, I felt guilty because they had given me everything I everything I needed to succeed. And then also because I felt that this was my life now. And as much as I wanted to please them and I wanted them to be proud of me, I needed to have that freedom to explore things on my terms, right? And so I had to have a conversation with both of them and address that. And I let them know that I knew and I understood that the reason they wanted these things for me and the reasons they were having these conversations with me was it came from a place of love, and it came from a place of care and concern for my well-being. But I could no longer handle, you know, being the butt of these conversations. I just couldn't deal with it anymore. And so we had a really respectful conversation, and I set my boundary and I said, I don't want to hear this anymore. This is my life. This is the way I'm choosing to live it. It may not be your ideal, but it's, you know, please keep your opinions to yourselves. Mm-hmm. And they've done that. They heard me and they listened to me and they backed off. And, you know, I may not have lived the life that they had hoped that, you know, I would live, but they're proud of me and they're happy for me. And we have a wonderful relationship because we had that awesome conversation.
Yeah. For me, with kind of my parents and my family, is I'm still living with them. 21. Can't really afford to move out in this day and age. But I am looking at moving out, and with that, I feel like I will be able to set clear boundaries. Like, I don't want to dive too much into what's going on with my family. There'll be a time and a place for it eventually. But it's hard when, you know, obviously your parents, when you're growing up, they're your protectors or the one guiding you. But as soon as you turn to an adult, you can make your own decisions. And that can be hard for a lot of parents to grasp, as all of a sudden you're not their baby anymore, you're an adult and you're now an equal. And so sometimes you have to kind of communicate that with your parents, be like, hey, listen, I know you had ideas that I would do X, Y, Z, but I am my own person. I can make my own decisions. I need you to respect them. And then we can move, and then we can like be adults in this world. Like, it's kind of like your experience, like going to school. It's like, hey, I'm an adult now. I can make my own decisions. If school is not a part of my path or a life choice I want to make right now, please respect that. Like, I'll do what's best for me. You've given me enough of guidance in like my 18 years of life beforehand. Trust that I'm going to be able to make the right moves going forward. It's a lot to kind of learn and establish, because it's hard. These are people that like raised you, and like having these conversations with them can be hard. You don't know how it's going to go. Some people might take it poorly, some might take it really well, but it's navigating and ultimately doing what's best for you. And then hopefully, along with setting those boundaries, these people will have more respect for you and be like, okay, now, like, all right, you are an adult, you're right, like, you made a good point. I'm gonna let you live life however you want. I'm still here if you need more help and support. But you're now out of your cocoon. I'll let you go, those butterflies, and fly. I won't try and keep you in it.
Pretty. I like that.
A t-shirt to make.
That was nice. Yeah. So I think, we've kind of touched on all this, but how do you best communicate your boundaries?
I mean, you are forever going to be learning and growing and changing them. So one thing is, like, if a new boundary comes up, communicating that as soon as you can is really important. If you're getting into a new friendship or a new relationship, I feel like you want to try and bring that up front right away and be like, hey, I just want to let you know where I'm at, what I expect, what I expect from you. I want to know what you expect from me, and let's find what works. And having those conversations as upfront and as soon as possible, so things don't at all become sour. But also, if anything comes up later on, bringing those to someone's attention ASAP, so things don't get sour and no resentment or anything of the sorts builds.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think a really good exercise to do, because boundaries are so ephemeral, is actually sitting down and listing them under the different categories. There are many more than we've touched on today, but make a list girl. Friends, romantic partnerships, family. What are your boundaries? Outline them. Actually sit down and deeply think, what are they? And that helps you kind of contextualize it. And I think once you know what they are, they're easier to communicate. I think, try to find the right time to communicate them. Never when you're in a vulnerable mood, or you're in an angry mood, you're in a reactive mood. Wait for the right time to bring it up.
When you are in a calm headspace, when you and this other person are both in a calm headspace and can communicate properly and respectfully, is when you can bring them up.
Yeah.
And if you can't get to that point, leave.
That's exactly right. It's ideally, if you're surrounded by the right people in your life, you can express yourself, just like Sarah expressed herself to me, just like I expressed myself to my family, and all of those conversations went really well, because there's mutual respect, and because clearly you have found the right people in your life who are willing to hear you out and who are going to respect your boundaries, right? But if someone doesn't hear you, doesn't want to hear you, argues with you about your boundaries, if someone doesn't even want to recognize a boundary that you have as being a valid boundary.
They're not respecting you.
No. And, frankly, let them go.
Say sayonara. You don't need them.
You really don't. You have your one life, and
have people in it that listen to you, that respect you, that if you have something to say, they take the time to sit down and hear you and reflect on it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so important to surround yourself with the right people in this life. It brings you so much peace and joy knowing that you can totally be yourself, you can totally be open. Those relationships are so amazing and add so much value to your life. And those that don't.
There's the door.
See ya.
Bye. I was gonna say bye, Felicia, but I was like, that hasn't been said in like a bajillion
Are you a
years.
millennial now?
I've been around you enough.
You're spending too much time with me.
I know. I need new friends my age. Someone reach out. If you were in your 20s, comment down below.
She needs friends her own age.
I need to get out. I'm turning into her.
She really is, though.
Like, little by little. Not in bad areas.
What bad areas?
I said not in bad areas.
I know, but what bad areas do I have?
None that I've seen yet.
Oh, good.
Just they don't want to adopt any millennial cringe. It's the truth of it.
Okay, whatever. Gen Z.
It's not an insult.
Anyway, I thought that was a really interesting conversation, and it was a really pertinent conversation with everything going on in the media at the moment. Again, I love that we have this language that we're able to use to express ourselves now. I think it's going to be hugely helpful for Gen Alpha, kids growing up now, 100%. Being able to express themselves from the time they're young, actually, no, I don't want a hug right now. Respect.
I love that it's really starting to be integrated in how people are raising their kids now and respecting their boundaries and not forcing kids to do things. And that is something I'm gonna adopt when I eventually have kids, is letting them say no, letting them understand that that's okay.
I do it with my dog. I'm not joking. I respect my dog's boundaries. I let her know if I'm going to inspect any part of her body before I do it. She currently has an ear infection, and I'll ask her to sit down, and I'll say to her, hey, I'm going to look in your ear now. And if she doesn't move away, I'll look in her ear, and then after that, I'll give her space, right? Everybody's boundaries deserve to be respected.
Even animals have boundaries.
They sure do. They absolutely do. They absolutely do.
It's learning them and respecting them and acknowledging them, and I'm so glad we're moving into a time and space where this is acknowledged and this is at the forefront of people's minds and their expectations around everyone and everything.
Honestly, this is such an important topic, and I feel like we could do a whole other episode on.
We could dive into each different category.
There's so many
more.
There are many categories we haven't even touched on today. So, let us know if you'd like us to do a deep dive into other topics in relation to boundary setting.
Yeah, whether we go deeper into friendships or relationships or family or something else,
Totally different
There's
things.
so much more you could say.
Absolutely.
We could probably talk for an hour specifically about the Jonah Hill situation, but I'm sure there's already a few people who have done that. I'm so mad about it.
She's so mad. Anyway, it was awesome having you join us again today. Can't wait to read your comments.
I'm getting a feel of you.
We are.
We love you.
We really do. Millennial heart. All right. We'll see ya. Thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate your input, so feel free to reach out to us with any feedback, comments, or suggestions for future episodes.
If you would like to support us, please be sure to leave us a rating and review on your favorite platform and subscribe so you never miss us.
See you next week.
Toodles.